And now, podcasting from the sun-scorched desert Southwest, weighing in at a combined total of 340 pounds, Brad Winchester, Tyler McDowell-Blanken, are Gimmick Infringement.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gimmick Infringement Podcast. I am Brad Winchester, and with me, as always, is my tag team partner, Tyler McDowell-Blanken. Tyler, it is the weekend before the weekend of All In, which is the weekend before the weekend of Payback and All Out. How we doing today?
Facts. I'm excited not only about our episode, Brad, but as you pointed out there, in a very methodical manner, huge few weeks of wrestling ahead. We already are not only thinking about these cards, but you and I were discussing what does this mean for GI and how do we put out that good content that everyone knows and expects from us. So I'm doing great. Really busy week, but you and I were talking beforehand. I think if you have problems at work like this, can you believe these people needing things last minute? Or if you're in school, can you believe how rigorous this class is going to be? I think those are good problems to have in the grand scheme of things, right? Being employed, being able to be in a program. I mean, these are all, I'm going to pass it to you in just a moment. When I think about issues that are happening in the lives of my friends or just nationally or in the community of Marana, specifically on Thursday of last week, I'm like, my problems are not that grandiose. These can all be solved. I just need to breathe. I need to hydrate. I need to call Brad or confide in Brad or other people, and I'll be okay. I'm going to get through this class. I'm going to get through the workday. So yeah, man, things are really good on my end. I want to hear how you're doing. I know you have a major update that you're going to share with us. I'm so glad you're safe. And I want to hear all the updates coming from Marana, Arizona.
Appreciate the words. I don't have a transition in, so let's just get into another edition of What Happened Here, Storm Edition.
What happened here?
Tyler, as we record this, we are about 42 minutes away, at least in the Tucson area, from the start of the wind advisory because of Hurricane Hillary. Hurricane Hillary is about to slam into the desert Southwest. Luckily, it's going to miss us out west, to the west, I should say. But by a bit, we're still going to get hit with a lot of moisture and probably some flooding, but it's not going to be like what California is in for here. So California and Nevada specifically, and thoughts to them, because it's probably going to be gnarly. But on Thursday, we got hit with a storm. We had a severe thunderstorm warning, I believe, and this was about 3:00, where our administration made the announcement that we were going to a shelter in place. Shelter in place is basically what it sounds like. Students aren't allowed to leave their rooms. Teachers aren't allowed to take kids anywhere. Nobody moves. Everybody stays put, because there was a lot of lightning in the area. About 10 seconds after that was called, I walked over to my door. I told my kids, hey, I'm leaving this extra Allen key here in case you ever need to lock the door for some reason. If I'm not here, you know it's there, so you don't have to wait for the sub to figure out what key to use incorrectly, not know how to lock the door, and you can just grab it and pop it and good to go. And when I tapped the door flew open, and I had to pull on that door to shut it as hard as I could. Now, the wind was blowing pretty hard. Some reports are saying it was 60 miles an hour. I don't believe that to be the case. After I got it shut, I had to grab it again. It blew open partially, and the wind was blowing much harder at that point. Everything was sideways. Some stuff was in the air. Some stuff was on the ground. It was wild. When it was done, our solar panels had been crushed down on one side. I don't know how many cars had their windows blown out. A bus had their windows all blown out. One guy thinks that his windows that were blown out was just probably the pressure, and the windows exploded. But from other accounts, it was rocks thrown by the storm. that took out a ton of windows. Our football field was being repadded and then relayed. We have artificial turf, and all of the padding was, we'll say it, removed and placed elsewhere by the storm. The softball field dugout, I think the home dugout, I can't remember which dugout, was completely destroyed. We have a greenhouse, was completely destroyed. A fence for the baseball field was collapsed on two sides. Lots of roof damage. A saguaro fell and hit the side of a building and caused leaking in the roof almost immediately. I think people think that you see a saguaro cactus, and if you're not from Arizona, you think that those are hollow and light. They're heavier than they have any right to be. One that's not very, very tall can weigh 20,000 pounds pretty easily. And it's, I don't know if it is, but it's probably heavier by volume than a tree. And it's absolutely going to cause some damage. The biggest tree on campus fell, a giant mesquite tree out in the front of the cafeteria, and a pine tree also fell. There's spots around campus where you can see the flashing had peeled back from the front of the roof, especially in the cafeteria. Lots of air conditioners were damaged. Luckily, nobody was injured except one kid who decided to try to free the broken glass from his windshield with his bare arm, who then ended up cutting his arm and having to go see the nurse. Nothing major, just stupid. And yeah, when it was all said and done and the storm passed and everything calmed down, and we were waiting for kids to find out what they were going to do, like who's taking the bus, who's driving home, who's being picked up, and then what's the plan for that, because there's really one road out of Marana High School. You can turn left, you can turn right. Turning right was closed. Turning left was open, but you couldn't turn left again. So basically all the roads would lead you right back to the school. So we just had to stay put until things were cleared. A semi truck flipped over on one of the roads and was blocking the pass over on Aver Valley Road. And it was just sort of a weird post-apocalyptic scene there, where I think like places that have been hit with tornadoes before, you see that kind of damage and you see like kind of the shocked, what just happened here look on people's faces. That was kind of it. It was everybody looking around going like, how did that happen so quickly? The whole thing probably lasted 5-10 minutes maybe, where it was really intense. That's probably too long for how long it lasted. The rain was crazy. And yesterday, as we record this, Friday, as we record this 2 days ago, about 500 people showed up at the high school to help repair and collect and clean up the football field, including a local high school team that didn't have to come out to help. And to see the community rally around the school and come out and help out was really incredible. So there's a lot of negatives this week. Nobody wants storm damage. Nobody wants to see things be destroyed. We weren't able to work at the school. The school didn't get power until late Friday night. So nobody really knows what their room looks like if they haven't been in there. Nobody really knows what campus is going to look like tomorrow when we welcome students back. And not all the roads are still open. There's still a lot of damage in other places. And it's absolutely wild. Probably a microburst. There were a lot of people that reported seeing funnels. I saw a picture of one, but it's hard to look at a picture on a phone when it's raining and wonder if was that a funnel or was that just a big white streak in the back of a storm? And I don't know. What I do know is that a lot of damage was done in a very confined space, and we're going to be cleaning up for a while now. And I think I don't think we're having our first home game next weekend for football. I'm pretty sure that's going to get delayed, Tyler.
Oh, I bet, Brad. I had two initial thoughts when you updated me on all this post-apocalyptic like business. One, of course, I wanted to make sure you and all of our beloved Marana Tigers were safe, right? Number one, putting myself over there as a thoughtful friend. But number two, my next thought was, I was transported back to being in Mr. Logan's biology class freshman year at Mountain Ridge High School. We had this week, I think he was out a few days. This dude was known as being a hard ass. He was actually really scary, Brad. He was like 5'6", but super stocky, from Michigan, a big Pistons fan, ironically. And he just put the fear of God in all of us.
Was
Like
it
he was a
like it's
he was a
the shape?
no, yeah. I've tried to find him, but I don't think he has much of a digital footprint. Or there are just a lot of William Logans in the world, and I just give up when the searches become too difficult. But point being, he was a teacher not to be messed with. We knew that even as freshmen, right off the bat, and I think he was new to Ridge too. But he had this week where he played The Day After Tomorrow for us. Do you remember that flick with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Of course, yes.
So your updates, your videos, your photos, everything coming from Marana reminded me of that. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember being 14 or 15 and seeing this in Mr. Logan's class and watching Jake Gyllenhaal. This was before HD or any of that, so we were watching on this old TV, and he gave us all these terms. I think it was a climate change. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think he actually had the setup where he didn't need a rollie,
Oh,
but
wow.
I think it was. My memory is it was like.
In the corner.
Yeah, it was the big TV in the corner. It wasn't even being projected for us. This was many years ago, though, obviously. But we had to like look at climate change. I think it was a climate change unit, so he was really ahead of his time in that way. So shout out to him for his lessons in that regard. But yeah, man, it just gave me major Day After Tomorrow vibes. And like I said, I'm just glad you're okay. I'm glad your ride wasn't too damaged, because I was really shook when you sent me
man.
when you sent me a photo of a car's windows just being completely destroyed, and then the other structural damage to the solar panels and to other parts of campus. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say.
That solar panel made it about 100 feet from above my car over to where my door was, near where the saguaro fell down. Like, I've never seen anything crush in solar panels like that, because they weren't blown upward, which is what you would probably assume would happen. But well, that one panel was, I guess, but the rest of it was all it was shoved down. Incredible force on those. But anyway, I do want to point out something funny. Number one, special shout out to Hugo. I love Hugo. He goes on the maintenance staff. He's been there forever. He's my guy.
He's the man.
Yeah, he's absolutely the best.
Yankee fan too. So
yes, I was wearing the hat.
Even though they're trash this year, I'm sure he's still wearing the cap faithfully.
At least there's Aaron Judge doing the Michael pose.
Yeah, I saw that on your timeline
with all of his rings on his finger.
I get a lot of my news from you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I saw him early Thursday morning out there pressure washing the campus, trying to clean it up. If the end of the day on Thursday doesn't make a man quit after that.
Again, Brad, my problems about what people need at work compared to what Hugo's got to be going through or was going through, I mean, it's night and day.
It's just, yeah, you can't pressure wash this one away. This is not. I thought it was funny. I was just like watching this man clean up every little bit of dirt, and then it's just like the whole campus is covered in leaves and rocks.
That's
and
rough.
It's just like, yeah,
we got to get Hugo on the show for this.
Promo
of the week candidate, probably.
Oh man, yeah. Just let him go loose. Yeah, I can already see the head shaking. He does the sideways head shake so well. I love it.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I know some things didn't go well for me, and weather-wise, we'll find out here in the near future in the next half an hour. But I know some things did go well, Tyler. Some things did not go well as well. I want to find out what you have in store for me for your question about WWE this week.
Yeah, it's about that time. So I'm going to start with some updates, what stood out to me, and then I'm going to roll right into my question for you. Trish and Becky are fighting in a cage soon. We got that update on Raw. SmackDown, man. LA Knight got rolled up due to a Miz distraction. I know you have thoughts on that, so I'm going to let you cook. Bianca Belair got jumped by Damage Control, and we presumably witnessed Edge's last match in WWE. And I want to stay there, Brad. Here's my question for you. If that's a wrap for Edge's WWE career, How will you remember his Hall of Fame run? And did his most recent run satisfy you?
It's a great question because number one, yes, it satisfied me because we weren't supposed to have it. Number one, it was all bonus, right?
Thanks. Yeah,
I
that Royal Rumble return by itself.
The return by
Special.
itself, and I do like that. Tony Khan was reaching out to him at that time. I believe it was Fightful Select where I read this, but Tony Khan had reached out to him to sign with AEW, and then because of the interest, that's when he called Vince, and Vince was like, "No, if you're coming back, it's got to be here." And then we got that Royal Rumble return, which is one of the only reasons it happened. And I know that the match last night with Sheamus is because they did the Celtic Warrior training thing, and Edge fell off his bike and realized he was okay. So he went to get checked out, and here we are. I love that. I think that this second run for him was amazing. Honestly, the wrestling was probably better than his first run. His in-ring work was incredible. His character work, incredible. He started the Judgment Day. He got kicked out immediately, but he started the Judgment Day.
He did. He got jumped by them and became a babyface. Yeah, that's the thing that happened.
He made the most out of all the stuff that he was given. He got to do stuff with Beth. They treated him like a Hall of Famer. I really liked it. I thought some of the stories were stupid. I thought it was way too drawn out to have it be all Judgment Day for basically an entire year of his couple-year return was just Judgment Day Finn Balor stuff over and over and over again. I go fight, I win the match, I get beat up, I return later, I go fight, I win or lose the match, I get beat up, I return later, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. It was just too much of that. So his stories didn't match what he was putting out in the ring, which is why I'm so impressed with him. Because that dude was showing up anyway. He probably knew the stories were getting old. But he, for a little while, made a new theme work. He cut his hair. He did all that. And I know that his schedule's different because he was off filming for the Disney Plus Percy Jackson show. And I think that's awesome. I've loved it. Last night, or I guess Friday night, last night for me when I watched it, that's a match of the year contender to me. Edge Sheamus was one of the best matches of the year. At least top 6, 7 up there. I don't know how to rank those things because Gunther's up there with Sheamus. Edge and Sheamus is now up there. And I can't even remember if Gunther and Sheamus was this year. It's all kind of blurring together.
Yeah, I think it may have been last year, actually. Yeah, you're talking about the one overseas, right?
Well, they had 2.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Oh, man.
I can't
WrestleMania, Sheamus, Drew, Gunther.
Yeah, that
there was probably a Sheamus and Gunther one-on-one somewhere in the last 8 months. Yeah.
But there's just so many. And then obviously the Kenny and Will duo, that those 2 matches are incredible. But like, I can't discount Edge and Sheamus. The crowd, the moment, Beth crying in the audience. So the match itself was really good. They told an awesome story. Sheamus was getting heat, and Sheamus is so good at just antagonizing the crowd, even as a babyface. He just feels them out as like, oh, you don't like that, huh? Well, let me lean into it a little harder for you. Amazing. All of it was so good. Edge firing up, doing the big eyes. He got all of his either hints at, or he got all of his moves in. He kind of gave everybody the entire thing, right? Was the execution, and we had the educator, and then we had the spear. Like we had kind of all of it, and it ruled. And I think Christian paying homage to Edge and the next night on Collision, doing
folded Darby, not only in half, but Darby just bounced.
Yes.
Yeah, just bounced. It was awesome. I noticed that too. Yeah,
that was the second grossest Darby bounce in that match. By the way, the first was the apron, the coffin drop.
I'm telling you, man, Darby. I know he's obviously been identified as a pillar, but that man is just. If there's one dude who represents AEW for me, it's Darby. He is just as the tat reads. That dude is truly relentless. He loves him some AEW, and I think it's reason why he's one of the most over wrestlers in the entire company. Everywhere they go.
Christian also incredible in that match. Edge and Christian both might be at their peak right now in the ring game, because they're both so good. Because I think both, having gone through such significant injuries, have to be incredibly thoughtful about how they put the matches together and their move sets and how everything needs to make sense. And we know Christian, by all accounts, is one of the best minds in the game. I need Christian Cage and Sexton Hardcastle to reform a tag team, and they need to fight the Hardys and the Dudleys, and that needs to be the last match for all of them.
I thought you were taking us down this path. As usual, you did not disappoint, my man. Yeah, it's that was a lot of the chatter this week, as if it's true that this was Edge's last WWE match. I mean, the tribute
match ever, and that would make sense.
Yeah, it would. It seems like he has something left in the tank. The Hardy tweet, how awesome it would be to see Christian and Edge back together. Christian's been cooking in AEW by all accounts from what we've seen. Yeah, I would surmise that his partnership with Luchasaurus is not going to last too much longer. I think Darby's for sure taking the TNT title at All Out. And then what does that mean for the Luchasaurus and Christian partnership? This is real interesting, Brad. This is something to monitor. Absolutely. I'm wondering, in terms of Edge's run, my final question for you, even though I'm only supposed to ask one. What do you make of Edge not holding gold in this return? He had the WrestleMania main event, him versus Roman versus then Daniel Bryan. We saw some bangers against Randy Orton, particularly what was touted as the greatest wrestling match ever, Backlash. Although that's a really lofty goal, I thought the match was still really, really great. So like you said, Brad, he's had some absolute bangers. What do you make of that argument that since he did not hold gold, this run didn't reach the heights it could? Do you think there's any validity to that, or you're still all in? No pun intended. All in on Edge's possibly final WWE run, sans any titles help.
No, that's stupid. Like, what else is he gonna do? The guy was already in the Hall of Fame and won a whole bunch of titles already. Like, no, he did
that. He did. I thought we were gonna get a run. I did.
I absolutely did not.
Really?
Maybe with like IC or US, but
okay, but not beating Roman.
No, but I think the whole point is Edge can go back, end it on his terms, which is what he said.
For sure.
But still, he's the veteran guy in the Hall of Fame. He should be there to put everybody over.
Yeah.
And
no
he
doubt.
doesn't need gold to do that. He could have a feud with somebody that's up and coming. Like, he probably should have been paired with Austin Theory at some point to give him that rub, because Cena kind of buried him and he hasn't come out of that hole yet.
I hear no lies. Yeah, Edge. I don't want to make this the whole show, but if we're looking at Edge's most recent run, I don't know which younger talent he really propelled forward. That's not necessarily a knock on him. If anything, I think it's a reflection of the booking. So he fought Finn. He fought Randy.
He handpicked Judgment Day. So
yeah. And then when it got a little too spooky, he was like, I don't know that I want to. This isn't. When it was very much House of Purple, weren't the reports from Fightful that he was like, I don't know if this is.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but it was definitely was that still Vince, or was that Triple H? It
was probably still Vince.
Yeah.
I think both parties were better for that split, though. Edge was better after House of Purple. And once Finn got there and Dom became Dom, and you got Rhea, who's amazing. I think both parties benefited from that divorce.
We got Brood Edge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was, for sure.
It's amazing. Yeah. And then look at where they are now. I actually like Judgment Day now. I still think that they got problems, but as a faction, that entrance rules, the music is great. The stuff that Rhea and Dom are doing, great. All of that is great. Edge wanted Rhea in that, and Rhea wouldn't be in it without Edge. And look what Rhea's doing now compared to what she was doing. Do I miss her old theme? Yes. But this rules. I miss Finn's old theme more than anybody's.
Me too.
We need it back.
Yeah, and we need Rhea on that Payback card. I don't know if it's been announced, but her not being on SummerSlam in an official match is still blasphemous to me.
Yeah.
Get that woman on every single pay-per-view. She's
Wonder,
the face of the company. She's outstanding,
I'm
Brad.
wondering if she's fighting an injury right now or something.
You know, that was a report, right? If so, that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about Edge? You didn't give us yours about his run.
Yeah, I agree in that it was definitely satisfying. I mean, I think you pointed out, Brad, you phrased it this way, if memory serves. This was never supposed to happen, right? With the neck injury, and he already had a storied career in WWE. So this was much like the Stings of the world in AEW. This was just a real privilege to watch him work and to go out on his terms, whether you're a wrestler or a teacher or somewhere in between, going out on your terms in a place that you've busted your ass for year after year after year, that matters. So super happy for Adam Copeland, the man. And then also, I think we were really treated to some really fantastic matches. So it's a win for me all around. I'm sure you're saying something amazing, my man, but you are muted right now.
Balls.
I'm rubbing off on you. This is interesting.
I muted it because I realized that I never turned off my fan, and now if I'm not talking, I'm trying to cover up the low hum going into the mic. And while we're doing it, I got a picture sent to me from that storm, so I'll forward it to you in a little while. But
okay.
I'll get to my question, which is what I was trying to do, is transition out, but here we are. Lacey Evans, gone. Nick Aldis is arriving as a producer by all accounts, but WWE is reportedly going to be having some producers also be in-ring talent. Big E's future is doubtful as an in-ring talent, though. Randy's still up in the air. Robert Roode is still out. Bayley has hinted at not continuing in the ring for much longer. Are we in the middle of a shift in the WWE, like the Attitude Era to the Ruthless Aggression Era?
I don't think so. No, I'm surprised that Aldis, if he's going straight to a backstage role, I'm surprised that he didn't get any in-ring work, because I think he could bring a lot to the show. Lacey, it just never quite got off the ground, Brad. I think I've never been accused of being the biggest Lacey Evans fan, but I do think there's a lot there. You and I joke that NWA, book it, Camille versus Lacey, NWA, their biggest show next year, whatever it's going to be, I think 76, that could for sure be the main event. I think she's got a bright future outside of WWE, truthfully. I don't think we're in a major transition, though. No, I think these are just examples of like the Big E's of the world, where injuries just really cut an amazing career short. Potentially, I hope I'm wrong. I don't know that we're in a big transition. I just think that by the nature of where wrestling is at now, because there's such a depth of talent, there are folks that just aren't going to work out. And because of how brutal the business is, right? Yeah. And the need to try to, I don't want to say everything's a spot fest, but I think when there's a thirst to just be different and take things to the extreme, I think unfortunately we are going to see more injuries pop up. Granted, Big E's was different, right? He was on the receiving end of a suplex that didn't go well. But I think it's just the nature of where we're at in wrestling in 2023. I don't think there's a huge shift in the works, but I could be wrong. What say you?
It's hard to tell. There just seems to be a lot of moving pieces. There are
that
are at the top of the card that aren't young. You know, Roman has really stepped back his in-ring work, and he's been champ forever, but you know, he's almost 40. AJ's in his mid 40s. Almost late 40s, I think, at this. Oh, no, he's in his mid 40s. The OC, I don't know, but they look like they're in their 40s. We have Finn, who's in his 40s. We have Mia Yim. No idea how old she is, but she's in a group with a bunch of guys that are older. So what do you do with Mia Yim if that group breaks? And then Asuka is winding it down. She's
great call.
Yep. I think she's 42. 41 or 42. I know she's about my age. The bump card's probably pretty full on these talent, and I don't know how much longer they have left in the ring. And then you have people that just leaving, and lots of people getting called up. Like Grayson Waller is one that I predicted would be up there pretty fast, and he is, and his shtick is great. It's the best in-ring TV show in a while because my God, there's a lot of them. There's just too many talent have in-ring TV shows. Like why do we keep doing this? None of them are original.
It's a trope. Yeah.
It's the KO show, the Jarrah show with the Jarratron 3000, right?
That's
And
right. The Peep Show.
The Peep Show. Ding Dong Hello.
Yeah.
Jason
Love
Wilder
that.
Fact. Ms. TV. Like you have a network worth of talk shows in ring. It's bonkers bananas bad, but you have talent getting called up or called back. Johnny Gargano got called up and then disappeared. Tommaso Ciampa is up, but he's injured and not injured, and now looking for Johnny. And also, I can't remember how old he is, but I think he's also up there. There's just a lot of older talent, man. And I know like it's different now. Careers continue.
It is, right? Your thoughts to peak in your mid-30s. And wrestling, there's always been like the DDPs of the world. And when Hogan was on top, he was older. But yeah, Brad, these are all the talents you just named are fundamental to WWE's top card.
But that being said, because Cody's like what, late 30s, I can't remember.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Brandy's 40, a little over 40, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Endeavor deal, the talent age, the shift in those things, it made me think this feels like they're not going to announce it, but it definitely feels like a big change is happening here. And we're in that middle of that transition, that funky spot in between things where we were this, now we're this. And I thought it already started, but it hasn't really continued. Maybe I'm missing something here, but I feel like the backstage segments have gone from it's really important that you pay attention to the background as well to, only the stuff on screen is going to be there. And I honestly, this is an aside here, because of course it is. But whenever there's a backstage beatdown in WWE, it's the same set. So you can never tell if you're in a different arena. It's always like the row of chairs with red lights on them or blue lights on them, and like production equipment to narrow the hallway to make it feel like a familiar space. And it's one of those things that I love about AEW is you're just getting whatever's back there. They'll put the screen up, but essentially it's like you're in a hallway at the United Center, or you're in the back over by this place. They show more of the arena, I guess, is the point, rather than and I'm sure this is a production on purpose element here where it's they're showing the WWE universe and that the universe exists in all places for consistency, for production value. So people don't have to wonder where they are. They just kind of go, oh, I know where they are. They're backstage. And that's as far as it goes. So interesting stuff there, I think. But I feel like something's shifting. I just don't know what. It feels like there's a change happening, and I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah. You bring a lot of facts there. For me, I guess I won't notice or feel a big change until the visual, right? And the in-ring looks different to me, which right now it seems pretty similar. You mentioned the the backstage area. I'm so upset that we had a Paul Heyman and Kayla Braxton segment. Love both of those people, especially Kayla. And it was just so unnecessary. Like, he said nothing. It was just Jimmy Uso's going to be on SmackDown next week.
Yeah.
Period. That could have been. Yeah. That could have been solved with the graphic. We did not need an extended segment. But yeah, Brad, you bring up the ages of talents, the Endeavor deal. For me, what would solidify this is my continued fear that if they start charging for the PLEs separate from Peacock, I think that would be the last step to have me fully on board with you that, something different is definitely brewing, and it's not going to be for the betterment of my, my Chase Bank account if I got to shell out $50 or $60 for WrestleMania every year. So yeah, man, you, as always, you're so good and have such a keen sense for what's going on business wise and kind of predicting what could be in the future for us as WWE fans. You raise some compelling points, man. I don't know if I'm fully there yet, but yeah, we could be on the horizon of that next new era in WWE. I mean, they're selling tickets, WrestleMania, selling records. Like, to me, it's just, okay, we were making money back then, we're making more now, and we're going to make even more with this Endeavor deal. But I think we could see some big shifts coming up, like you said.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm convinced yet. It's gonna take a lot for me to be all in. You see what I did there? Yeah,
Ooh.
we haven't done this in a while. It's been about a
Okay.
year probably. But we're gonna talk about All In to get ready for All In. It's time for another edition of Back in the Day.
And now it's time to get old school. Prepare yourselves for Back in the Day.
That was so smooth. Very well done, my friend. Yeah, it's time for Back in the Day. So it's only appropriate that we spend some time reflecting on the greatest, at this point, consensus, likely the most important independent wrestling event, not only of our generation, Brad, but ever, one could argue. All In 2018 from the Sears Center in Chicago, Illinois. Over 10,000 fans flocked to this arena to see this show, led by Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega. So, Brad, this card, you and I are looking at it, and what stood out to me first was, respectfully, how unspectacular it was. There were matches such as Matt Cross defeating MJF. So yeah, Son of Havoc from Lucha Underground beat MJF, which is just wild now, considering MJF is in the main event, is the champion in the main event of All In London.
Talent, yeah.
Generational talent, as he reminded us of this past week. Easy for me to say. But Christopher Daniels beat Stephen Amell. Tessa Blanchard, you remember her, Brad, won the women's four-corner survival match. Of course, we got Cody versus Aldis. Hangman Page defeated Joey Janela. Jay Lethal defeated Flip Gordon. Flip Gordon appeared twice on this show. Kenny Omega defeated Penta, and of course Jericho appeared as well, which was a huge deal. Okada defeated Marty Scurll. Again, Marty Scurll, also someone who life is different for him these days than it was back in 2018. And then, of course, Brad, the main event was the Golden Elite, Kota Ibushi and the Young Bucks defeating Bandito, Rey Fenix, and Rey Mysterio. I think often forgot Rey Mysterio was on this card.
Yes.
Really big deal. So my question for you here, Brad, as we reflect on this 2018 show, I kind of already said this, so maybe I spoiled it, but I really want your thoughts. We've seen New Japan do some really good work over the last few years. Of course, Impact has made strides over the last decade and change, getting the Spike TV deal, bringing in Hogan and Bischoff. There's been non-WWE products that have been worth checking out. But All In 2018, was this the most important wrestling event of our generation?
Yeah. I can't think of a single other one. It certainly wasn't the biggest, but it was the most important. You know, like all the WrestleManias were bigger than this, but
yeah, I mean, we can even throw in WWE events, not just Impact and New Japan. If we even include WWE, where do you land on this?
Yeah, I'm sure there are New Japan shows that were bigger, but not more important. You know, New Japan's been around for a long time.
Yeah,
so
that MSG show.
Yeah, and well, I mean, Tokyo Dome.
Mm-hmm.
You're filling a lot more than this. And,
of course, ROH has done great work as well. Yeah. Can't forget about them.
Well, technically, this is an ROH show.
Right, exactly.
Show. So
yeah, Honor Club Jones.
And I'm looking at the buy-in, going, man, SCU defeated the Briscoes. That was a match on this card, and it wasn't even on the main card. And
how wild is that?
Yeah, looking at that, it's crazy. But you're right. Seeing Flip Gordon won by last eliminating Bully Ray. There were a lot of people on this card, and shocking people. There's some people that are back in WWE, like Rey Mysterio, and also Samuel Shaw, otherwise known as Dexter Lumis. So there are people all over the place that are familiar names to AEW fans, New Japan fans, and WWE fans. It's pretty wild. And for an independent company to say, yeah, we can do this, we can fill a stadium, that's It's a big deal. And I can't think of anything more important because that gave Tony Khan the I don't know what the word is, but the courage, the reason to start AEW and start an alternative company. And it's always been an alternative company, not a company that is supposed to be a direct competition to the WWE. It's supposed to be an alternative. So it's wild. Everything is nuts now, and it's all because of 2018. I think this has to be the most important show of our generation. What say you?
You know I'm on board with you. I would also add it gave Khan the courage, Tony Khan that is, but also the affirmation that business-wise this could be successful if you build a company around some of these talents who are not signed to WWE or other promotions. There's a thirst. There are fans who want to see this and will pay money to see this. So them ended up, Tony Khan and company landing a TV deal for AEW, signing a lot of this talent, acquiring new talent over the last 4 years. It's incredible, Brad. Funny enough, you nor I actually watched this live. We didn't order this. I was aware that this was happening, but I was not. I knew of it, but I did not buy it, which seems kind of absurd looking back on it. But I'm fully on board with you, Brad. This is the most important wrestling event of our generation, and it's really cool to have been witness to a new company starting from ground up.
Yeah, absolutely. And the women's match, we had Tessa Blanchard winning, which is something now. But Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Chelsea Green, and Madison Rayne were all there. And Madison Rayne and Britt are with AEW, but Chelsea Green's in WWE after being in WWE, NXT, and then Impact, and then back to WWE, where she's toward the top of the card now. She's got a big spot with doing the tag team thing. I think she's with Piper right now, right?
That's right.
Sonya got injured. And Tessa Blanchard, I saw at an indie show. She was doing something this past weekend. Arguably the best technical wrestler in that group of women, but gone essentially because of some really unfortunate things. But
I mean, we could have a whole episode on that. It's just the Tessa Blanchards, there are other names too. I'm thinking of Velveteen Dream, but we should not give him any. Yeah, I mean, there were talents in 2018 where we thought, oh man, these people are going to be future WrestleMania guarantees, and it hasn't worked out that way. And largely due to their own faults and their own misbehaviors and how they treated people.
AEW signed one of them. I can't remember who it was, but I think he was the guy saying all the anti-Semitic stuff. Do you remember?
Yeah. Was that? Oh man, Jimmy. Are you talking about Jimmy Havoc? Does that sound right?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Maybe because they signed him.
Yeah.
And it was immediately like, hey, all this stuff came up, and then Moxley replaced him at the last second because he was supposed to make his.
Oh yeah, Brian Kendrick.
That's what it was, Kendrick.
That was him. Yeah. I think Jimmy Havoc may have been something else, but it was also just like, oh man, this dude is not someone we want repping the company.
Immediately,
he has to go.
Atlas was the same thing. Jake Atlas was there, did a match, got hurt, disappeared forever because of dumb stuff.
Yeah, we were all rooting for you, Jake. Insert the Tyra Banks gift. We were all rooting for you, bro. And then it wasn't domestic violence or just something.
I can't remember.
I think it was DD related.
Terrible.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, really, really unfortunate. Well, what's not unfortunate is we get to talk about AEW heading into arguably their biggest weekend in company history. I should probably say inarguably, and it's also certainly their biggest month in company history. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out because Forbidden Door does this stuff too, where it's right on top of another pay-per-view. And why are we bundling these things? This is wild. So I'm not sure. I might have to pick and choose which pay-per-view I watch, Tyler. But I'm ready for your AEW question, unless that's the one.
No, not quite. I'm not mad at that. But I do want to ask you about All in London. AEW was interesting this week, to say the least. We saw a Texas Chainsaw Death match.
Woof.
At least money went to Maui Relief. That, or I'm sorry, no. That actually, I think money went to AEW there, right? But the show, Fight for the Fallen, proceeds went to Maui. Is that how it went down?
Yeah, the money went to AEW, but Tony Khan donated all of it.
All of it. Okay, good.
As far as my reading comprehension took me, that's what I got.
Good. That makes me feel much better about whatever it was that we watched. I was so scared of Leatherface when I was growing up, Brad. So Texas Chainsaw holds a special place in my heart because that movie, I couldn't watch it at night. That had to be a daytime horror movie for me. But there was a lot that went down. I think a pretty forgettable Dynamite, and then even Collision wasn't one of the better episodes we've seen. But all that being said, like you laid out for us, All in London is this Sunday. 80,000 plus fans will be there. Just a massive, crucial show for All Elite Wrestling. I want to know, being that we now have a more filled out card, we have seen the Stadium Stampede match has been added. We received confirmation. We saw it confirmed. Jericho versus Ospreay, two of your favorites. It's a lot on this card. I want to know, what are your thoughts on All in London now that we have the majority, if not all, of the matches in place? And are you setting expectations as a fan heading into the show?
Good question. I think the card looks really good. It's going to be fun. A lot of complaints out there that there's not enough singles matches and that Kenny Omega is in a singles match and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's all in trying to get as many people on the card as humanly possible so that the one time they're in London, probably for a long time to come, they can get a maximum exposure to their favorite stars. Like, if you do all these singles matches and they're all 20 minutes long, you're going to be there for 8 years to give London the kind of event and the exposure to their faves as that they want. So I don't know how they're possibly going to be able to pull that kind of thing off. So multi-man, multi-woman matches it is. CM Punk and Samoa Joe makes sense. FTR Young Bucks, why are we complaining? There's so many good matches on this card, and Jericho and Ospreay. Jericho is an all-time favorite. Ospreay is a current favorite. I don't need this match. I need this match like 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Okay, that's interesting. I know you ride for these guys.
I think it's going to be great, probably, but it could go real bad for Chris Jericho. But Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho did really great things together. So I don't see why this would be any different. So I have high hopes for it, high expectations. I think this is going to surprise some people, but I know how people feel about old Jericho in the ring. I'm trying to do that thing where instead of comparing talents for a long period of time and ignoring them while they're there, like we do with LeBron, I want to look at Jericho and go, like, we still get to watch him live. We get to see Sting wrestle in a sold out stadium. Sting, before he finally hangs it up, gets to wrestle in front of 80,000 people. Why? That's, to me, that I want to see the expression on his face when he goes out. Like, that very well could be his last match. I don't know. We're getting toward the end of his run. December 2020 is when he debuted. He said it would be a 3-year run. It's year 3. So, and we're heading to the later part of the year. I don't know if he'll leave at Winter Is Going, but we'll see.
And we also got MJF versus Adam Cole headlining this. There's that really intriguing.
And they're on the buy-in.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've decided how I feel about that. I'm assuming they have a major plan for how this is all gonna shake out. But Cole versus MJF was by far the best main event they could conjure up, and I think it's gonna be one of the greatest they've ever put on.
Crowd interaction wise, those two entrances.
Yeah. That was a highlight for me on Dynamite. Was their in ring time together?
Oh,
like who's going to turn on who, or who's going to cheat to win? And I honestly don't know, Brad. I know we're not getting into full out predictions for this card, but I have no idea. And those are my favorite pay-per-view main events, when I legitimately don't know who's going to walk out of the main event with gold. I'm not sure if you're leaning one way or the other, but I'm leaning MJF so that we can get Punk versus MJF the following weekend at All Out in Chicago. But I could also see Adam Cole being super nefarious, and perhaps he's been working with Roddy and the Kingdom this whole time. I'm intrigued, man. I'm sold.
Yeah, they're both very good at being bad guys. So
Yeah.
I kind of can't, and being very good as being good guys too.
Yes.
I can
Yes,
also
they are.
see them like getting along and both pairing up to be really bad guys together. So I can see that getting flipped very quickly and very easily, and both of them turning on the crowd and everybody around them. So I feel like that would be the best outcome, because I think it would shock everybody, because the other ones are a little predictable. So I don't know, that might be a fun way to do it. I don't know what that looks like. I'm with you. I think MJF heads into All Out weekend to unify the titles, the real championship and the current championship. But also that makes me think maybe CM Punk gets involved in the match in some way. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
I didn't even consider that.
He'll be there.
He's going to be there.
And that's assuming that CM Punk's going to beat Samoa Joe. So
right. Yeah. There's a lot of boxes we have to check before we get to the outcome here.
If Joe wins, then I think that's the end of that. I don't think that happens otherwise. Yeah. I don't know who CM Punk fights after that.
I don't know who MJF fights at All Out.
I don't know.
Assuming he beats Adam Cole, maybe Adam Cole just is victorious and then
defend the tag team championships instead.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know.
This card at AEW is known for this, Brad. They just pull together these cards in the span of a few weeks, and we're excited for it. We're willing to drop some cold hard cash to watch this.
I want to see who shows up. I want to see who, if anybody turns. We're going to get surprises. Maybe Nigel stands up and just takes the suit off and he's ready to rumble. Because I know
you saw that report too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wembley would be the place to do that. So,
and then you think about, for Brad, you mentioned the fans who have shared some concerns about this card, but again, going back to wrestling and injuries, there were reports that we were supposed to get Danielson versus Omega.
I know.
Obviously,
I'm so
Pac.
sad.
It's reported that Pac is injured. I hope we see him in some way. Jamie Hayter, I think we for sure see her in some capacity. Brad, could you imagine? The thought was Jamie Hayter was going to regain her championship from Toni Storm. That was one of the moments I was looking forward to most on the show. Was just the Hayter pop. So I hope if she's able to travel, that we see her, we hear her music in some way. But like any wrestling card, injuries affect the event we end up getting. I think AEW's put together a pretty great show regardless.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm living through the Hayter pop in my head.
Right, that was going to be a top moment that we were supposed to get, but
it kind of seems like their top British talent right now is all injured.
Yeah,
like there's we got an injured Scott. Do we have any Irishmen that can show up? I'm not really sure because everybody else is Jamie Hayter injured, Pac injured, Nigel not injured. So maybe that's the direction we take there. I don't know. Everybody else is Australian, it feels like, and I don't know if they get cheered or booed. Probably booed. I don't know. I love everything Toni Storm is doing right now.
Yeah, it was needed. It was needed. I'm happy for her.
Yes, that shift is so good.
Yeah, and throwing items at Lexi Nair. I think that's becoming a bit now. It's not just a one-off. I think it's 2 weeks in a row, Brad. It's
the backstage interview. I don't know who you are, but the girl was so rude last week, and it's like, her with her hair up.
Marilyn Monroe City. There's I think there's a lot of great moments in Toni Storm's future. I'm happy she's not getting lost in the shuffle.
And I think it stands to point out, maybe not to reason, but Juice Robinson, Toni Storm married, they have ramped it up big time over the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if they're just like, hey, I'm going to outdo you this week with my level of ridiculous. I don't know, but I'm here for it because it's amazing. It's also
it might be.
So Tyler, as we were talking about, All In is next weekend, and it looks like it'll be a fun show. Hopefully we see the debut of Sexton Hardcastle, but we got to talk about Cash Wheeler. So there have been a lot of instances of these kinds of events throughout all sports. Ja, for example, and Ja's dad talking to people at a high school, I think, where it's like, this wasn't a product of him not being educated. This is just his bad decision-making. My question for you is kind of a broad one. What should the policy be for arrests involving guns in any capacity for top talent in sports?
Wow.
And I specifically said top talent because we
Yep.
know that they're getting a different treatment.
It's different. It's different. And you and I have also spent time on the show discussing John Morant and the state of his career after his situations with firearms. For Cash, well, first I'll say I'm happy that from what we've heard, Brad, it's when you see this dude is involved in aggregated assault. Aggravated assault is something different, I suppose. Aggravated assault with a firearm. You know, when I first saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, do I need to donate my FTR Living Legend shirt? What is going on? But apparently it's, you know, he was involved in a road rage incident and he flashed a gun at someone. So still not a great look. What do I think the punishment should be for top talent? I'm leaning more that 30-day suspension unpaid, which is tricky though, because we know when we're thinking about business, if you take away FTR versus Young Bucks, that's rough for All in London, Brad. I think that's being pegged by many as potential match of the night or favorite match of the night. For match of the night, I should say. I don't know, man. I don't envy Tony Khan and company in these situations. I would say my policy would be 30-day unpaid suspension, but I do recognize that there are some business implications here that when you think about your bottom line, this could present some real challenges. But that's where I'm leaning. I'm pretty surprised that we're getting Cash at the Pape and
Big risk.
all is well? Question mark. I don't know how I feel about that, but I want to turn it to you. Where do you stand on this?
I think that's a huge risk, man. Like you're not going to Arthur Ashe. You're not going to Daly's Place. You're not going to the United Center. They're not holding back in London. Like the London fans are going to let you know there are going to be some chants that I'm not sure Cash is ready for. I think that part is not being talked about enough. I think it's going to be brutal for him out there. I hope he's ready for that mentally, because it's probably going to feel pretty bad when they start saying stuff. I don't even know what they're going to say, but like, it's going to turn into an 80,000 person chant about being a bad American or gun happy or whatever. I just think it's going to end up being a whole thing, and little concerned about that. But I don't know what you do from a business standpoint. To your point, like if you do I'm with you, like a 30-day suspension. If the way that I would probably play it is good as call the talent, pull the talent. Hey, this happened. Are you admitting guilt to this? Is this true? And if they say yes, okay, we're gonna put you out for 30 days. If they say it's not, and then they're found guilty, I don't know.
It's
Bye.
tough.
I'd probably see it.
And like you, and well, like you said, Brad, the dilemma here is because it's that main event level talent, right? We know it's so easy if you're a 13th man or woman on a roster, or an undercard talent, an enhancement talent. It's easy to say, oh yeah, you're suspended or you're just gone flat out.
Atlas, we mentioned.
Yes, you laid it out for us, man. But when it's folks who draw money, John Morant, Cash Wheeler, etc., it just becomes a bit more complex. I'm just saying, Brad, this is kayfabe, of course, but if Ricky Starks is suspended for 4 weeks for putting the belt to Ricky Steamboat, but Cash Wheeler apparently has no major consequence, I don't know if I feel good about that. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, and a lot of people are coming to Cash's defense, and to be clear, none of us know what happened. We're all on the outside looking in. Tyler and I are a couple of marks doing this. Like that's it. Neither of us are from the business. We've never taken a bump. We don't know what it's like in that locker room.
Mm-hmm.
We just get to talk about this stuff from our perspectives, the end period. So I'm not passing judgment on him. If the other people don't talk about how they were being aggressive, flipping him off, challenging him and stuff like that. If he felt threatened even in the slightest and he just flashed his piece to stop it, I mean, if it's an open carry state or
Florida, right?
Yeah, it's a Florida.
Of course it's happening. Of course it's happening in Florida.
And he's a Florida resident, then I understand like showing him the gun is basically a death threat. But if you felt like he was being menaced in any way, a guy that size that knows how to fight, I don't know if he's menaced. But
yeah, he's an Adonis. Great point though.
But yeah, so we don't have any of the context. We haven't heard from Cash. We haven't heard any sworn affidavits. We haven't seen, other than like what the witness said, the one that's accusing him. We don't know anything else. We haven't seen anything else. And until there's a court date and he's sentenced, if he is at all, my guess in Florida was something like that. It's probably a fine and community service. Like I doubt he's going to do any kind of time for it. I just think it'll kind of go away, and then he might even be sentenced to go do some anger management or something, which honestly sometimes I think we could all use. But when you're, I guess here's my point with the gun thing. Guns are serious business, and I'm not making light of that. But I think sometimes we expect people that are violent as professionals in a violently violent professional violent industry that's violent to not be violent. Hopefully I said violent enough to get my point out.
I think you made it perfectly,
because it's pretty violent. I think we're asking for a lot. The guy is before I knew him, you know what I knew him from before I knew him from wrestling?
What's that? Punching
the guy in the face that tried to attack Bret Hart.
Wow.
My first experience with
stellar reference. Yep.
Is putting that guy down because he was still moving, and that one quick uppercut and it dropped him, and they just dragged him away after that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is not a man to F around with.
Nope.
And all of those the FTR with Dax Harwood podcast stuff, whenever Dax talked about him wanting to fight or whatever, he'd be like, you do not want to fight Cash Wheeler. That guy likes to fight. He knows how to fight, all of those things. So in terms of the aggression stuff and his background, Cash did not have an easy upbringing, and he was just sort of like fighting to survive. I'm not surprised that he would do something like this. It's just sort of how he grew up. And it's part of his nature for survival. But we don't take any of that stuff into context in the moment. We just look at it and go, road rage, the end. Which it was, but I don't think it's as simple as that. So hopefully it all turns out, and hopefully this never happens again. And hopefully it's not a risk for TK and company for the show. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, man. Well, hopefully, Brad, you will be tuning in this week, not just for wrestling, not just for All In London and Raw and SmackDown and all that good programming, but we have the finale of the Bachelorette. I know you're beaming at this, Brad. This is it. This is the end of Charity Lawson season. So let's go ahead and play the music. It is time for a rose from me.
And now for a rose from GI's most eligible bachelor.
So, Brad, the penultimate episode of The Bachelorette was, of course, the Men Tell All special. Brayden, the heel of the season, one would argue, was present. Beef was addressed. Xavier got the one-on-one interview. Of course, you remember, Brad, this was the dude who confessed to cheating, and he just is not ready to be engaged nor to be married. So he got the sit-down interview with Jesse and then Charity. And Gary was even there. His name is spelled like Jerry, but this dude's name is Gary. He is the lead. He's the Golden Bachelor. So he was there to promote his show. They're still in Fiji, Brad. It's down to Dodden and Joey. Aaron even is flying himself to Fiji. Aaron's a dude who got booted during hometowns, but I don't think he stands a chance. So we're getting the finale here. But I want to tell you, about halfway through the Men Tell All special, we got an ABC breaking news announcement. Trump and his cronies are being indicted in Georgia on RICO charges due to the plot that they conjured up in hopes of overturning the 2020 election. But this happened about halfway through the men tell all, and the men tell all never came back, Brad. ABC just stuck with the Trump news bulletin for legitimately the next hour, which, fair. You know I am all here for that being covered and being distributed to the masses. So I have feelings about this, Brad. It's one thing to be a career swindler, a COVID downplayer, an election interferer. The list goes on and on about this dude. We're not a political podcast, but we do have thoughts every now and then, especially I do. But Brad, when you interfere with my Bachelorette schedule, we got a problem, man. I'm not happy about it. This is just another reason why I can't stand that dude. But we're getting the finale this week. Again, my pick is Dodden. I think the chemistry is there. I think the hometown episode just validated that he is the favorite. I'm going to report back to you and the masses next week on this, but my pick is Dodden. You can seal it in, you can send it in, and I'll be updating you on what is next for the runner-up, what's next for Charity and her fiance. I'll have all that for you next week. But in the meantime, tell us what you think. What are your predictions? You know how to get at us at GIPod19. Stay tuned, Brad. I'll have updates for you.
That's really funny. All of it's really funny. I also really appreciate that I believe Giuliani is also being indicted for this through RICO charges, and he made his career through RICO charges. So I think that's hilarious.
Full circle. It is hilarious, Brad.
It makes me, it brings back memories of him holding the press conference in front of the Four Seasons, but it was the Four Seasons Tire Center. And it was like in the back alley. It's just amazing to me.
Bad. And the sweat where he's dripping the hair dye. Like we talk about falls from grace in wrestling, not to just dance on this dude's premature grave, but this guy went from being America's mayor. My family's from New York, so they know Giuliani. And in 2001, this dude had one of the highest Q ratings in 100%. The country.
Everybody knew who he was.
Yeah, he was beloved. So 20 plus years later, to see what he's become is just gross and just pretty sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Tyler, what did we miss?
We missed a few items, so I'm going to read you the list I have. I think there's only about 3 on here. Speaking of politics, there's the Republican debate this Wednesday. Yes. So much of politics reminds me of wrestling, Brad. There's heels, there's storylines, there's factions. We're going to get all that on Wednesday. Yeah. I try to be kind of a political junkie, so I'll be tuning into that, and I think it's going to be must-see TV. But that's the thing that's happening. I learned that the first preseason game for the Phoenix Suns is going to see them squaring off against the Detroit Pistons, Detroit basketball. So you and I will have to discuss that at some point. I loved Willow Nightingale's pounce on Diamante on Collision.
Diamante's entrance?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. She's legit. So I love that. And then my final note, I refrained from texting you this, Brad, because I wanted to get your reaction, organic, on air.
Mm.
I think I tweeted about this, so you may have seen it, but I purposely did not text you about this. This past week, I was driving, and we're at a stop sign. I look to my right, and there's a woman brushing her teeth at the stop sign. And then even when the light turns green, drives, but is still getting in her circles and making sure that Crest toothpaste hits every last section of her. It was nuts, Brad. So we talked about road rage. We talked about Cash Wheeler for several minutes. It wasn't even that I was rageful, Brad. I was kind of impressed that this woman had the ability to and she was brushing well. Like, she was hitting the circular circular movements and still operated her vehicle. So while I do not recommend this, and in hindsight, it's pretty abhorrent behavior because there are many fatalities across the country every single year due to poor driving, I just looked and thought, like, oh my gosh, what the decision-making of some of our fellow drivers in Arizona is pretty wild. So those are all of my updates. That's what we missed. That's a little taste of what's forthcoming. I want to hear what you got. Did you see anybody brushing their teeth while driving this past week? I hope not.
No, I didn't. I did see the only things that I didn't talk about already. I wrote down some things about LA Knight, talked about it. Edge and Sheamus talked about it. Was Diamante's entrance and how much I've missed her on the main roster. We talked about this, it feels like a year ago now, as we approach our second anniversary here. It's absolutely wild that we haven't seen more of her, because I love her. I think she's great. And I thought that was a great spot for her. But that pounce was, oh boy, what a pounce. I did see Elon Musk getting rid of the block feature is a thing that might happen, and then being fact checked by community notes, which then got edited again to say, no, it was never taken down, even though you tried to edit the notes. So it's fascinating to see him get fact checked. Now I think community notes are probably going to go away, or you're going to be able to hide your followers, because there's like 80,000 of his followers have 0 followers or 0 tweets. And it's fascinating to watch all of the X stuff kind of unravel, devolve, all of those things.
Yeah, it's I saw that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Brad. What a time we're living in. Well, speaking of X, you can follow us on there once again at GIPod19. Brad can be found at Windduster. I'm also on there at Tyler J. McDowell. You can also read our articles on wrestling, pop culture, and much more by visiting gimmickinfringementpod.com. Shout out to my co-host for maintaining that site, making it look as amazing as it does. And finally, most importantly, we thank you for being here, and we hope you'll join us again for the next edition of GI. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.